I just picked up my turnip to carve for All Hallows Eve. That's great, but nobody really carves turnips anymore. Everybody uses pumpkins now. Oh, I guess I'll be having turnip soup for dinner then. Hi, it's Madeline with Blue Stocking, and today we're going to be talking about the history of Halloween. Before we begin, please note that this is a very abridged account. Halloween began over 2,000 years ago, but I'm covering its history in just a few minutes. If you want to know more, I have some reading suggestions in the description of this video. So without further ado, let's dive in. Interestingly, Halloween traces back to the ancient Celts. Celt can also be pronounced as Celt, by the way, but Celt is the standard pronunciation. Just to be clear, Celt is not the same as kilt. While they are both of Irish origin, kilts hadn't even been invented when the Celts were around. Anyway, as I was saying, the ancient Celts lived 2,000 years ago in the area that is now known as Ireland, the United Kingdom, and northern France. They began their new year on November 1st and celebrated Samhain, their version of a New Year's Eve holiday, on October 31st. On that day, they believed the veil between the living and the dead was thinnest, and ghosts of people who had passed away could return to Earth. The presence of these spirits supposedly caused trouble and damaged crops. However, the Celts also believed it made it easier for their druids, which was kind of like a religious leader, to predict the future. We don't know a lot about the celebrations as part of this festival, but we do know that the ancient Celts wore costumes to participate in animal bone burning rituals and to avoid being recognized by evil spirits. By 43 AD, the Roman Empire had conquered the majority of Celtic territory, and two Roman festivals were combined with the traditional Celtic Samhain. The first was Feralia, a day in late October, when Romans commemorated the passing of the dead. The second was a day to honor Pomona, the Roman goddess of fruit and trees. Pomona's symbol is the apple, which probably explains the modern practice of bobbing for apples on Halloween. Fast forward about 1,500 years, and some changes had been made to the celebration. The festival eventually became known as All Hallows Eve, and children and the poor went from house to house, often wearing masks, begging for money or treats, and threatening vandalism if refused. Talk about a very literal trick or treat. The rituals of Samhain arrived in the United States during a wave of Irish immigration in the potato famine of 1845 through 49. Along with them, the Irish brought the jack-o'-lantern, which was associated with the Irish folktale of Stingy Jack. Stingy Jack was a clever con man who schemed his way out of the underworld but couldn't enter heaven because of his sinful life. After his death, he roamed the world carrying a small lantern made out of a turnip with a red-hot ember from the underworld inside to light his way. This legend probably evolved from sightings of the will-o'-the-wisps, which are swamp and marsh gases that glow at night. So, on All Hallows Eve, the Irish hollowed out turnips, carved them with faces, and placed a candle inside. So when they went out souling, which is what they called trick-or-treating, they would be protected from spirits like Stingy Jack. But when they arrived in America, the Irish traded their turnips for pumpkins because pumpkins were bigger and therefore much easier to carve. Now the basics of Halloween were in place, with people going door to door asking for candy and carrying jack-o'-lanterns. The only problem was that it was considered legal for anyone to vandalize businesses and homes on October 31st. Trick or treat, remember? After the Halloween of 1912 in Hiawatha, Kansas, a woman named Elizabeth Krebs got tired of all the vandalism in her community. So she put on a big Halloween party the following year in 1913 to tire out the neighborhood kids so they wouldn't have enough energy to vandalize anyone's property. Unfortunately, she underestimated the local kids' determination and the community was vandalized as usual. But the next year, in 1914, she involved the entire town, brought in a band, held a costume contest, and put on a parade. This time, Elizabeth's plan worked and no vandalism occurred. News of her success traveled to other towns, which established yearly Halloween parties with candy, costume contests, parades, music, and dancing. The party as a distraction from vandalism didn't catch on nationwide, however, and by the 1920s, this mischief night was a real problem across the United States and Canada. It's unclear how, but eventually, kids were willing to accept candy from homeowners in exchange for leaving their property in one piece, putting the "or" in trick or treat. This had already been established in Canada by 1927, when a newspaper from Blackie, Alberta, Canada, featured a story about children going door to door in this way, which was the first appearance in print of the phrase trick or treat. Though interrupted by World War II's sugar ration, modern Halloween has continued in America since the 1930s and is steadily becoming popular in other countries. Well, that's all for now, friends. Remember to feed your mind.